This is Susan Popoola, host of the Leading the Mosaic World podcast, with a special series on being a man in today's world. As of late, I found myself increasingly conversing with men and focusing my work on boys and men. Boys and young men trying to find their place in the world, emerging leaders in the workspace, established leaders navigating increasingly complex environments, and successful men missing a sense of real fulfilment. It all points to the question of what it means to be a man in today's world. A question fundamental to men, for gender harmony, and for a mosaic world in which everyone is valued for who they are and what they have to offer to the world around them. Join me as I explore this subject with a rich diversity of men, and women too. Thank you. This is the Leading in the Mosaic World podcast, the Being a Man in Today's World series. I'm really pleased that today I have as guest Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz, properly known as the Man Whisperer, a title given by Newsweek. He's the founder of Menspeak, the men's group which has been in operation for over 25 years. There's so much I could say about Kenny, but in a nutshell, I would say that through the groups that he leads and his wider work with individuals and couples and organizations, he helps men to achieve their life, relationship, and career goals, enabling them to gain the awareness and tools to consciously meet all of their life challenges. Kenny, thank you very much for being my guest today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Always good to hang out with you and to unpack what's going on. Not the stories, not the bad news, but what's really going on in the male psyche and what hurts and what are the cover-ups and how to come from love rather than fear.
I think a lot of the time with men, there's so much of a focus on what's wrong that we forget the joys and the great things about being a man, which I think are just as important as the challenges.
Yeah. Well, I've been holding the online groups every day for 6 years. And as you said, men's groups for about 25 years. The core of what the majority of men come in with, irrespective of age, race, class, is what's wrong with me and how do I do me right? And what they find out in the way that we hold the groups is who they are and who they no longer need to be or pretend to be, and how to take part in life being themselves and being true to themselves rather than performing and leaving themselves out of their own lives while pleasing others in order to be safely accepted. And safety is a huge issue.
Yeah, just thinking about people going around and coming to a space with the question, what's wrong with me? That's not really, that's not a great starting point for anyone or for anyone to be in that space. From your understanding, your experience, your vast experience, what is it that typically takes men to a space or a place of thinking that there's something wrong with them?
Unfortunately, these days, I would say it's the obsession with media, social media, marketing, comparison. If you don't look like this or have this, what do they call it? There's an organization doing a lot of research at the moment amongst young people, and they've come up with the term relentlessly rich and ripped. Boys and men are being told they need to be rich and they need to have like Adonis bodies. Otherwise, They're not good enough with other men. No one wants them. And that's where they're stuck. This is their kind of addiction, obsession, and it's all over the place. And if people are told you need to do this or have this in order to be good enough, and it's always there, the comparisons, the put downs, etc., they're going to believe it. And it's very, very normal for males to compare and compete. It's also very normal for males to be collaborating, supporting each other, and part of a tribe, part of a friendship group, part of a community, part of an extended family. It could be anything from rugby to church. It really doesn't matter. But this is where boy behavior turns into man behavior. And boy behavior is all about fear, competition, and reaction, where man behavior includes love, collaboration, and the ability to respond in truth rather than react in fear. Men know when to pass the ball and when to score. A lot of boys won't even go on the playing field anymore because they're so scared of doing it wrong. And one of the hugest tragedies these days is males often, well, very rare to find a male with a good friend or a friendship group where they can talk and be heard. But males rarely hang out. Males don't know how to just be together. It's even down to making eye contact. It's often been said that these days it's easier to find a girlfriend than to find a male friend or a best friend. Like, how do you do that? Do you say, do you want to go out for a coffee? What we're talking about is the way a man can be, and it's not about doing. A man can show up and take part rather than showing off and dominating. And it's the same with, for example, bullies. People fear bullies. Bullies get a lot of attention, and bullies often feel very bad about themselves, and they're passing on the behavior that they've had from others. That's not friendship. Whether it's corporate bully or physical bully or playground bully, that's not friendship. It's theft. So there are a lot of places where this works. I'm absolutely delighted at how my groups work because the strap line is we hang out, be heard, and get real. And it's non-hierarchical. And people talk about their own experiences. So we all get to learn from each other's experiences rather than you should listen to this podcast, you should read that book, you should do this and do that to pretend to be someone that you're not, to get ahead of the game, to have the status. So finally you're good enough to hang out with. And as far as I'm concerned, right here and right now, everyone is good enough to hang out with. It doesn't matter what you've got or how you look or what's going on. It's like, show up. Don't think about it. And that's another huge thing with males, is males will think and fix to the extent of second guessing, fantasizing, fearing, and trying to fix the fears and fantasies. And in the old days, men and boys would speak with each other.
Has it always been like that, or has it changed? Because you mentioned the media, and if it was different before, what was it like before?
Yeah. Well, there wasn't the internet before. The fountain of all wisdom, the place to get ahead of the game, the place to find cheat sheets, the place that encourages people to risk all sorts of things, get into debt, to invest money, to get ahead of the game so there is money so people want you. The things that people do to their bodies and their faces, literally breaking the bones in their faces to reset a different looking face. It's got to that extreme. But it's all sales. Have a hair transplant. Men are very, very insecure about losing hair these days. In the old days, it would be ask your friend, ask your neighbor, ask in church, ask in school, ask at work, ask a stranger. We would talk. I mean, I feel very lucky that I was brought up in a small town in Wales, and we were always asking each other, and we were always hanging out. We weren't always getting on, but that's also part of learning boundaries and being in community, is being in conflict and repairing it, but to be in it together.
But so for me, we have the internet, but that doesn't mean we don't have neighbours or people around us that we can talk to.
Yeah. Well, some do and some don't. And it seems like the bigger the town, and it also depends, the higher up north, the bigger the town, the more anonymous. And it's down to individuals to make the effort to say hello, to ask something, to just make a move. And the number of men, especially older men, who gain so much of their connection in the library, in the health centre, in the shop, desperate for interaction, buying coffee, just to have some human interaction. It's tragic. And then even this is taken away, because then it's like self-serve. Men are lonely. And it's tragic. And this loneliness is so easily harnessed by people who want to build a following, make a lot of money, tell others what to do, whether they're living it themselves or not. It's like, well, this is who I'll show you that I am, so I can build my numbers. Earlier on, before pressing start, we were talking about cults, and it's all the rage. There are so many, from Kajabi to social media, set up to build a cult, where it's like, I will be your charismatic leader. I will show you how wonderful my life is, and I will tell you how to live a good life and how to get up the ladder by literally standing on other people and dominating a space. And it's all fear and manipulation based, rather than tools for life and love based. So yeah, people do talk. People talk more and more. But to keep it clean and non-hierarchical is a key. I love the way that people hopefully have the choice to come and go. Don't find when it comes to groups, when it comes to trainings, when it comes to friends, when it comes to anything, it's like, don't cling on like it's a really boring networking event and you find someone half decent, scared of everyone else, or everyone else is so busy on the sales pitch. It's like, move on, come back and say hello, move on, explore.
So that's men's groups like the ones you run that are set up specifically for the purpose of men having the space to interact. And I know you've got women's groups as well that you've started, but the prime focus being on men. But in my mind, because I'm here to learn as much as I hope other people can learn from the conversations, men have still got sports. So either playing football or going to watch football, golf, other sporting activities. There's always a view that those are a place where men build relationships and they talk and interact with others.
This is where it gets a lot more individual, because the spaces may be there. It's up to the vibe of the spaces. So in those spaces, are you going to talk about the size of your car, or are you going to talk about issues in relationships or parenting or aging or what really matters? And a lot of people have played sports with a friend for years, tennis every Tuesday at whatever it is o'clock, and they really hang out and they really bond. Or they've had their rugby team, or my best friend started a football team for all the fathers from his children's school and stuff like that. And he comes to groups and it seems to work. But it's up to the individual to either collude with the locker room banter, which can be quite vicious, or have a space. And it could be with one individual, or it could be saying no to something that's harmful with the locker room banter. So it depends on the individual and what the individual is willing to bring to the sports group or any other group. It's the way that people show up. And it doesn't need to be anti anything. It can include that and bring something else. And the most tragic thing that I have heard consistently is when men go to the funeral of a man in their sports team or their town or their street or their workplace or their friendship group saying, I had no idea that was going on for him. I wish he spoke about it because I had that going on for me as well. So it's fine to do together. But what I'm really talking about is being together and just adding a little something, rather than how are you, fine. It's like, fine, but, sometimes I've got a little something at the back of my mind. And that's enough as an invitation. And then maybe later on it might come up, or fine, but I kind of finding it difficult to manage boundaries with my children or with my parents, or sometimes I wonder whether my relationship is blah, blah, blah. Then it's a very gentle invitation for people to either step forward or step back, or it's the biggest risk for men. They might be humiliated or they might be abandoned for bringing something real to the table. And to be frank, I would rather take the risk and know where I stand with people. And if I need to be met at a greater depth and the people around me aren't able to do it, then it would be wise for me to find someone to speak things out with, even just name it and be heard. And the really important thing here as well is not go for a solution. It's very scared boy to go for a solution, because then if I've fixed your pain, I've done a good thing, and I don't need to be in pain because you're in pain. So I'll get us out of it so I feel safe. So my little boy inside feels safe because you're not upset or angry.
Let's talk about the little boy, and with that, talk about you as a little boy, your journey, because there's something that brought you to the place that you are and the work that you do. But so I'm keen to just know a little bit about your background, where you were born, raised, and grew up, what brought you to where you are today.
At 61 and a half, the pennies are still dropping. So I was, the biggest penny that's dropped recently is, so I was born in a Catholic Goan family in Uganda in the mid-60s, and it was pretty matriarchal, I would say. My grandmother took care of everyone. She lived with my grandparents, parents, and I, and then my brother. My aunt and uncle lived not that far away. So I was my mother's first and very wanted. And in a strange way, from a very, very young age, I felt responsible for the emotions of women, which was very much apron strings, Oedipal complex, where the little boy or little girl should not be elevated to a status that's above any parent. It should be the parents and their love first, as a brilliant demonstration to children of how to live in love. The penny that dropped quite recently is my godmother, who was given a lot of power when she was a child, and therefore she was spoilt, narcissistic, and wielded her power in very selfish ways, chose me to be her favorite and put me on some sort of a pedestal that I didn't choose, and kind of spoilt me and protected me while neglecting her own children, to be frank. In the end, her 3 girls were sent to convent and her boy was sent to boarding school. And I didn't realize, because I was a child, what was happening to me. And already my cousins naturally turning against me, because why is their mother loving someone else rather than their own child? So complicated. And it cost me being one of the boys and a child. And from quite an early age, similar to my godmother, I had obsessive compulsive disorder. And then later on, I had Tourette's and body dysmorphia, etc., etc. And then from there was trouble in Africa, trouble in Uganda with Idi Amin. We lived quite near. My family got on the death list. My father was helping people to fill in forms and get themselves and their families out of the country. He got people out of places where people are usually killed, and that's the end of them. So he did a lot of good, and our name went higher and higher on the death list. Cut a long story short, we had death threats and we were followed and things. So we went into hiding, and then we left Uganda without him, and he was smuggled out. So there I was at the age of 7 or 8 in refugee camp, being told that I'm the head of the family and I have to take care of my mother and brother. And we were amongst people from other cultures. We didn't understand their languages because we were brought up Goan Catholic speaking English. And they were very different types of Indians with their own cultures and their own languages that we had very little to no exposure to. And there were a lot of very angry and sad people having lost their lives, lost their homes, lost people. We're in refugee camp, we've got nothing, and how do we start from here? So I carried on being a little boy pretending to be a man for a very, very long time. And at the same time, carrying on with the programming of I have to take care of my mother and my godmother and save women. And I have to take care of my brother. So he is as untouched by the trauma and has a life that's as normal as possible. I started holding men's groups after being away from the UK for about 5 years and really missing my closest friends. So I got them all together. And when I came back, a lot of them were distracted. Money, power, drink, drugs, sex, love, addiction, the whole lot. And it's like, well, what about us? Where are we? We were so tight. We were so pure-hearted, on the same side, adventurous and meeting life together. So I got them together, 16 or 18 of them, to get back the quality that we used to have, because it was wonderful. And it's only in later years that I realized that most, if not all of these men had some drama and trauma at home. Most of them had ADHD at least. Some had addiction issues, and we were all surviving, having come from unstable families, irrespective of our classes. But we had that in common. So I have wondered whether my need for good male company was a kind of counterbalance, a reaction to not being one of the boys, not being one of the children, and putting that right. And also needing quality. It's like, I can't wait for someone else to provide for me. If I can create something for my good, the good of other people, then of course I'm going to do it. And breaking the addiction of saving women was a big one. Because I was speaking about this with my wife yesterday. If I have the ability to bring goodness to anyone's life, why would I not? And I really had to learn that it's not for me to fix or save. It's for me to enable and empower. And I didn't do my work for many, many years for fear of stealing people's lessons, stealing people's power, and stealing people's journeys. But it's almost like so many people who I work with want a sense of purpose and the power and the passion that comes with it. And I found my sense of purpose with what was not right in my life, and putting it right for me and putting it right for other people. And I've found that so often with so many men and women that I've worked with is what was not right for you that you can put right, what really matters to you. But in a nutshell, it was traumatic, it was dramatic, and enmeshed with women, abandoned by men. And it was up to me to turn it around so I could be my own authentic, balanced man, respect myself and pass it on.
There are a few things I'd like to touch on with what you've said. One, that you've said a couple of times, possibly 3 times, is feeling responsible for the emotions of women, feeling that you need to save women.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? What's that about? What does that mean?
For me, it was on one hand, the women being in pain or in need of attention. So when my grandparents left Africa and went back to Goa, my whole family were like, we've lost our parents, and someone needed to kind of take care. Before that, it was literally not being able to bear my mother or aunt or caregivers being in pain, being vulnerable, being disappointed, being sad. From a very, very selfish level, it's if they're okay, then I'll be okay. So I'll take care of them. And once they're okay enough, then they can take care of me because we're in it together. We need to survive together. We need to live together. We care. We love. So, of course, if anyone's in pain and I can do something about it, then I will. From a very, very young age, I was adored by the women, and that cost me my relationship with the men and the other boys. So it was almost like I was enmeshed by the women from a very young age. Other kids could see that as, lucky boy, you've got all the love. Meanwhile, it's not something I asked for. You could say it was kind of subtly and maybe unintentionally enslaved. And I would say by far this was more godmother than mother because she was used to getting all the attention. And it took me decades to realize that actually it's not about putting things right, because she absolutely loved the attention. So I kept giving the attention and taking care. And as I was told, not being like the other men and boys, because apparently I'm special, which was a curse in itself. It's like, where's the space for me to actually exist in my life beyond pleasing you? And of course I'll please you because you're in pain and you're in trauma. And if I can put it right, I'll put it right. And we're talking very, very early core programming. And we're talking in a time when, and this still happens in a lot of communities, when all the parents have the right to discipline all the children, whether they're theirs or not. And there are very poor boundaries about what goes and what doesn't go. So it was a bit of a free-for-all in some ways.
So,
And
and it
then,
almost feels as if there's a codependency.
worse than that, it was an enmeshment. There were no boundaries. It was access all areas, and I may as well have been their property. So, yeah, my experience of it and what the other kids and, and even the men, it's like, he's getting all the love. Why is he getting all the love? Where's the love for me? Where's the attention for me? And I would say when I work with men, I am working as much with their vulnerable child, their wounded child, their neglected child, their broken-hearted child, as I am the man in front of me. Because the emotions and where they're coming from, it's deep.
And so, thinking beyond yourself to that description of men, and I wanted to take it that that is not the experience of all men, but for a number of men. And I guess by the nature of what you do, you will have come across a number of men who have had those, should I say, adverse childhood experiences.
Mm. And very interestingly, so many men at some stage will see their families from the outside, and suddenly the penny will drop about their fears, their limitations, their no-go areas, their lack of power, their lack of boundaries, and why their relationships aren't necessarily working out because things from their own childhood are playing out. And no way is this to blame anyone in my family, because I believe that everyone, all the adults, they couldn't share what they didn't have. This was the best that they had. This is the best that they knew. And same as everyone else, they were surviving and giving it their best shot. So it's up to me to accept it rather than hold any grudges or, any of those feelings, because that's not going to help anyone. Accept it, respect it, and live with clear boundaries myself.
So, thinking about the challenges that you faced growing up and the different challenges that different boys that you mentioned, that when you reflect back to boys growing up, that there were different experiences they had, whether it was being faced with addictions or whatever else it may be. What would you say to parents today about raising boys? What can they do to better support their boys in growing up with minimal fear, more positive relationships, and the ability to better navigate from being a boy to actually becoming a man?
Yeah. 3 things with this from the top of my head. The first one is to be very aware of their environments. They will be products of their environments. So this is the environment at home. It's the environment at school. It's the environment with their friends. And then it's also the environments online. Who is influencing them? What are they seeing as normal? If we're going to be products of our environments, then it's up to us to be very aware of our environments. And with the boys, they're going to be looking for, how do I do me right? How do I climb up the pecking order? How do I relate to other people? How do I cover up what I'm scared of? So be aware of everything they're consuming and provide them with the best environments so they can see good interactions, good friendships, care, love. Just give them good environments. The second one, which I think is vitally, vitally important, is listen to them. Don't just tell them what to do and what not to do, but listen to them. Listen to their thoughts, their feelings, their fears, their confusions, and maybe work it out with them. Maybe talk from your own experience. Maybe provide them with people who would help them work things out so they can empower themselves. But more than anything, listen to where they're coming from. Listen to their experience and meet them where they are. This lack of listening is the most tragic thing. And when a man or a boy is not heard, then they're going to go online and they're going to be a victim to algorithms that's going to be telling them, do this, do that, and then it becomes messy. But listen to them as a human and model human interaction. Reflective listen so they know they're heard. And then ask them what their choices are, what their options are, and what outcomes they'd want, and show them how to work things out. And I would say the third one is to enable them to grow into who they are. Not necessarily who you think they should be, but what are they good at? What are they interested in? Where do they flourish? What brings them confidence? What brings them a good sense of self-worth? Let them have that. And also bring them some of the things that they may fear in a very gentle way so they can move into, whether it's maths or rugby or dancing or creative writing or whatever it is, slowly, gently, step by step. So let them grow the goodness that they are and let them explore safely the stuff they might fear so they know how to take part wholeheartedly And safely, it needs to be safe. And if they're heard, then they're so much safer. Heard and not fixed. Heard and not directed. Just heard. Let them speak it out and let them lead the way with guidance, but let them lead the way.
And I think that's great. So the environment, listening and active listening, and I like that, reflecting back so that they really know that they've been heard, and enabling them to safely make mistakes as well. You're not going to be condemned, or it's not a bad thing.
Exactly. One of the ground rules we have with the groups is experiment with who you are and see who you no longer need to be. So let them change. I would say 2 more very basic things is eat together, sit together, eat together, and make it normal around the dinner table to have time and space, obviously without phones or anything on, and being together. And also be who you want them to be. A tragedy with a lot of families and males is the fathers don't have friends. So the boys don't see male friendship and might not know how to do it. So provide a good community. Be what you want to pass on, because it was said in the old days that children will spend half their lives turning into you and the other half trying to undo who you are to find out who they are. And for me, it's like, provide them with a good community, because then the parts of them that they see in other people, that can come alive, rather than it's just you and it's just at home and they haven't seen you navigate life, so they don't know how to navigate life.
So that's very much about being open about who you are. And I suspect to a large extent we're thinking about men, but it's also women, like mothers and everyone else. But it's them being able to see from the example of parents, fathers, uncles, community members, and I guess that in many ways goes back to environment, for them to be able to see what it's like, and the good things and the challenges, and how it's making mistakes and everything else that comes with that.
And making mistakes is playing big enough to get it wrong, rather than being so small that nothing's going to be right or wrong or have any impact, because small is survival. Big enough to get it wrong. I know I come alive at the edge. It doesn't mean I'm addicted to danger, though I have been here and there, shark feeding, bungee jumping, jumping out of planes, whatever. But, all of that's a quick fix, rather than being in the moment, in life, in pain, in love, in relationship, in growth. But it is playing big enough to get it wrong and being supported
And I
in
think
the
it's
taking
important.
part.
We talk a lot about safe environments and safety, but there is something about how people respond when someone gets things wrong, and that makes so much difference as to how they behave the next time.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, there's what we can do, parents, community, in terms of supporting young people as they navigate from boyhood to manhood. But then I'm also thinking of the young person, the young boy, the young man who's trying to navigate and doesn't have that support. You come across a number of those within your groups, and you mentioned young men. But what would you say to that young man that is navigating, trying to make that transition that you mentioned, that a lot of the time we don't always get from boyhood to manhood? So we've grown up in terms of age and physicality, but in terms of the person, they haven't necessarily made that transition. So I'm just wondering what you say to that young man trying to find himself and find his way.
It's interesting you bring this up, because what was on my mind just then is the shadow. So going back to my story, I was made into a mummy's boy, and my shadow would be the bad boy, the rebel, the risk taker, etc., etc. I did my adolescence finally when I was 34. The way I did that is my shadow was my best friend. And throughout my life, I was a sensible, grown up, popular male with lots of male friends. And I'd play my role in the friendship group. And some of them were bad boys. Some of them were party animals. Some of them were a bit dodgy in certain ways. And we just got on and we had a great time. A lot of them were my shadows. There was one in particular. And with this guy, we were very close friends. We lived together. We worked together. We partied together. And finally, I did my adolescence in that I was very rebellious about the way I used to be. And I needed to literally throw everything away and find out from the core who I was beyond the mummy's boy, the nice boy, the good boy, the harmless, the overcaring, overloving little boy pretending to be a man. And rather than having other people play this for me, I had to own it myself, own my dark, feel my anger, feel my sadness, feel my rage, feel my jealousy, feel my competitive nature. All of these things that I was told bad people do, or that would be stupid male behavior or unruly. It's going through that adolescent initiation to go berserk and pull it together again and live a lot more holy, as in whole, rather than a little saint. I did the little saint. It was time to be the other holy. But it's really interesting to notice with people's children and with ourselves, who am I attracting and why? When people come into the groups with issues, and it could be with their partners, with their children, with their friends, with their work people, the issue is received because this is what's going on. And very often there's an invitation from the facilitator of, if you breathe into this feeling and you feel this feeling, then we're here with this feeling. And then if you follow the feeling back, where does it take you? And generally in a split second, it's straight back to a scene, to something that happened in childhood that needs healing. So the journey, the pathway, is to navigate what's going on now that's not quite right. That's bringing up an opportunity from the past. Call it the gold shadow, the dark shadow, the thing that's been forgotten about or pushed away, or, it never happened. That needs to be released. So that no longer happens. And there's freedom from the dark shadow wherever the pause button's depressed that's restricting the life. And once that's met, then it opens the gold shadow of who I might be and what I might be able to attract in my life. And I would say it's very, very male to want to be in control, figure things out, have a plan, and then pace it and do it and coach it and be accountable for it and do. And there is a time and place for that, as long as it's not front and center. And I say that because I've noticed in my life that the most wonderful people, opportunities, situations, the best things and people in my life have come through life, way beyond my thoughts, way beyond my fixes, and way beyond my plans. So I need to be available to life to attract and receive these, and I need to be doing the doing. But it's the being first rather than the doing first, because being in control and surviving life will create Groundhog Day. It'll be the same old story fueled by survival rather than the bigger, better story fueled by love, using the tools of survival to stay grounded and real.
So thank you for that. Just A few thoughts going through my mind is the biggest thing that I'm taking is be yourself. Just a young man growing up, allow yourself to be and to experience things. I want to believe that we're not saying go out and do naughty, wild things because it might have to do so. So we're not saying that, especially when you mention be guided by love as well. But be yourself with a consciousness and a mindful of others, and to some degree you're experimenting it and you're being yourself. I think that's, should I say, a fundamental thing.
Absolutely. And I would say it's so easy in daily life to feel, is this true? Or does something in me not feel quite right about this? So rather than I will perform being myself, it's more I can let go of who I no longer need to be. What doesn't serve me, what doesn't serve other people, what keeps me apart from people, or what doesn't quite feel right anymore. It might have felt right 5-10 years ago, but right now it just doesn't feel true. So it's letting go who I no longer need to be, rather than pretending to know who I am and inflicting that on myself and other people, because that leaves room for change. And I would say everyone needs space to change and grow. Sorry.
And that's recognizing that we evolve over time, and what's relevant at a point in time might not be the most important thing at another stage. So the way you were when you're in secondary school at that level, and certain behaviors, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but that might have been relevant. The structures, certain structures that you had then might not be relevant. You don't have to get home at 3 o'clock and do A, B, and C that you did in secondary school when you're in the workspace. There are different set of rules and guidelines and principles, and it's being able to accept and recognize the different space. And that could be from being single to being married, from being in a different culture, a different environment, space. Am I right?
Yeah. What's really interesting about what you said there is I've had the privilege in the early days, most of my clients had been to boarding school, Harrow, Eton, whatever, especially Harrow for some reason in the early days. And I had the privilege of working with about half a dozen boys, men, who were in boarding school together. Because, in those circles, they'd say, you've changed, what's happened to you? And they'd say, you need to meet Kenny or whatever. The interesting thing for me is they all had totally different experiences of being in school together. The same as people have totally different experiences of being in the same family. And they literally divvied out that's the good-looking one, that's the charming one, that's the sporty one, that's the one that's good at maths, that's the one that's great at literature, that's the one who really take care of you if you're in danger or trouble, that's the one who always wants to fight and is a bit rowdy. And they were so compartmentalized that they handed over so many parts to other people, and they were limited by their role. And this role kept limiting them after school, during uni, in the workplace, in their businesses. And a lot of my clients are self-employed. They have their own businesses. And my God, having your own business brings up the personal issues that play out. And I literally had to meet with these guys, obviously as individuals, and let them take back all the parts they gave to the other boys so they could be whole. And they're not playing that role that they were so used to playing for so many years in boarding school. And the most efficient way that I know to do this, and that I get people out of the dark shadow and into taking part in life, is I literally get them to move chair, whether it's online or in a room, move chair, and I will speak to the part that's running their life. That's usually their inner protector, and understand when that part showed up, what it does, how it restricts their life, how it could benefit their lives, etc. and then I come back. And then they get to meet the inner man in them who's waiting to take his place. And then we come back, and then we might meet the critic, or we might meet the part that needs to be more effective at work, or a better father, or whatever it is. And we literally meet the different parts, and then they know how to navigate consciously rather than being owned by their survival structure that helped them survive in the past, but is costing them their lives in the present. But it's these ingrained roles that people need, and I certainly needed to unlearn, because I didn't ask for this. It's the way that things were, but it was my opportunity to unlearn it, do my adolescence, be my own man, not the man or the little boy pretending to be a man that other people wanted, and show up as myself and really take part.
Yeah. So finally, in context of all of this, can you explain the dark shadow? What is the dark shadow?
The dark shadow is anything that has been denied, suppressed, embarrassing, painful. It could be the feelings of a tragedy, maybe losing a parent, losing a friend who's moved to another part of the country as a child, a broken heart, bad behavior. It's like that never happened. Because if I include this in my life, I may not be able to survive. If I include this in my life, it'll weaken me or embarrass me. So if I push that away, then I can be who I think I should be, so I can survive other people. So it's the denied, and it's a very powerful part because it costs energy to push it away. And it doesn't work because it will play out in life, bringing opportunities for it to be met and released. So whatever it is that's denied will literally run the show. If, say, for example, my best friend betrayed me by kissing my girlfriend or something like that, and I've forgotten about it, I've pushed it away, it's like it never happened, then I might, in my life, be paranoid and maybe be obsessive about, will my girlfriend betray me? Can I trust my friends? It could be that I manifest a business partner who will betray me, or I will find myself people who will keep playing this out until I deal with the core issue in the past. And Groundhog Day doesn't keep repeating the script and repeating the pattern. And it could be around abandonment. It could be because someone died. It could be a misunderstanding. But until I meet it safely, and it needs to be safe, until I meet it safely, it's not going to go away. And when I release it in the dark shadow, when I meet it and feel it in the dark shadow, and it might just be a moment rather than years of talking about it, then the equal and opposite in the gold shadow would happen. And it could be, and this isn't something that happened, it's the first thing that crossed my mind, it could be that finally I can find love, someone who I want to be with, who I can trust and trust me, and we can go deeper in our relationship rather than finding women who I feel will betray me because that's the old script. Finally, I can find a best friend or a group of friends where I can be with them and trust them as adults in it together on the same side, rather than believe all men will betray, all men will steal. And then what will take place in my life, the opportunities and the goodness, that's the gold shadow. So the dark shadow is that never happened. I don't want to know about that. I can't survive that. The gold shadow is that is so good. I'm not worthy of it. I don't know how to allow it. And if I do allow it and it goes away, then I might be in so much pain that I'll never survive again. Meanwhile, it's set the dark free and set the gold into being to live a bigger, better life in a grounded, safe, conscious, sustainable way. And I could say, yeah, and it's simply meeting the fear to enable the love. And in a nutshell, maybe it's all about living from fear to love, living from unconscious to conscious, and from survival into living and loving.
And that makes perfect sense. And I think it's fair to say that's a key thing that people get. I mean, it's part of it's part of your journey, what you've navigated yourself, and what people navigate within your groups. I'm just thinking, for you, having gone through that whole journey, what's success for you now? What's success? What are you really looking to achieve? And what would you want your long term impact to be in the work you do and beyond?
We were supposed to have this chat 2 weeks ago, and I got ill and I couldn't speak. I had a very tough time with days of hiccups and vomiting and not being able to breathe and all sorts of stuff. And it happened to happen on the 30th anniversary of my first group and the 6th anniversary of our daily groups. And the goodness that happened is the facilitators, who I know and love and trust for so many years, some of them, just got together, took over and ran with the groups to make sure that there's cover every day, and to look at how the organization will run way beyond me, which is exactly what I want. It can't be about me. It's about everyone and passing it on. And it was just the most magnificent thing. And I know some of them got together on the anniversary of my 30 years to celebrate them and what I started and us together and the community and everything we've been through. It was literally my wake. And what could be better? Because now it's handed over. And since turning 60, my big thing is just handing over all my tools, everything I've got, not so people can be like me, so people can be like them and benefit from anything that I've got and use it in their own way. So for me, it's all about handing over. I love seeing my clients. I love not just holding groups, but training people to hold groups. I love doing things like this, anything that I can do to hand it over. And I wonder what my next phase will be. I really wonder, because I don't feel like I've peaked yet. I intend to put on more retreats and things like that, because it's the immersion of being together. And post-adolescence, I'm no longer a mummy's boy at all. I love the man that I am, good, bad, and ugly. And for me, I fear the way that the world is going, because masculinity and masculine power has so been demonized that people don't know where to put it. People don't know how to be masculine and male and have power without being in trouble, without being shamed, without labeled as bad. And this is something that needs to be expressed in the world so it doesn't come out weird. And it's coming out weird. I mean, I haven't yet seen The Manosphere on Netflix, Louis Theroux. And I will at some stage. But I'm almost embarrassed to watch the people that the boys and the men follow to get ahead of the game, because they don't know how to be male and masculine in their lives. And being male isn't all about being masculine. Being male is about being your own authentic man, including the masculine and including the feminine. But I feel like there needs to be a space, and it's exactly what you said right in the beginning, for the goodness of male and masculinity to be normalized and grow.
Yeah,
Talking, playing, fighting, learning, growing, being in nature, revisiting our own nature, reinventing ourselves in greater authenticity, and consciously being powerful and being able to empower others, rather than having power over others unconsciously and spreading that kind of nonsense and the mess that we're in today. But this falling apart that I feel we're going through is necessary before the falling together that is on the other side of it. And in the falling together, there are and there will be wonderful spaces for all of us to grow into who we are in love and in alignment with ourselves. And this is what my life is about in the next stage. And I wonder how it'll pan out. I can't pretend I know.
Well, I guess that's one of the joys of life. And so, coming close to a conclusion, what is the best thing about being a man from your perspective? Because we speak so much about the challenges and all the issues. From your personal experience and that of the men that you meet, what's the best thing about being a man in today's world?
I've got to do three off the top of my head. For me, the best thing about being my own man is allowing myself to change and grow and let go of the old scripts and the old me's, keeping the best of it, but being able to keep changing and growing and adapting to the new world and meeting people and having boundaries and meeting at the loving boundaries and taking part in the world. So this is about me and setting myself free. The second thing, and I say this after being ill in my friend's home, is being able to take care of other men and allowing other men to take care of me. And I was on my deathbed, and my friend was absolutely wonderful in the way that he took care of my needs, whether I needed, I don't know, to go to the late night doctor or to speak to healthcare people or to clean up after me or to ask me if I want to watch David Attenborough or a movie, or if the music's too much, or just, being able to cover me, or, proper intimate care, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, socially, being able to trust other men and be with other men. And I feel very lucky that I've got good men in my life. And I have earned good men in my life because I've engaged. I've had to fearlessly engage. And I would say the third part of it is, and this is a real privilege, being male, especially with the traveling that I've done. I've lived in other countries and I've had lots of adventures all over the world. I've been quite indestructible. I've been able to go out late at night. I've been able to go places. I've been able to do things where if I was female, it would just not be safe. So I've had the privilege of going out and doing things. I've had the privilege of doing dangerous things, and just because I'm male. It comes with privilege, and it's up to me to respect the privilege and use it wisely and be aware of those without privilege and bring them along, or at least advise where to go, where not to go, how to manage and what to do.
And dare I say, and also be in that position to support and look out for those with less privilege. And I guess in this case, we're talking about females in spaces where they might not have that same level of safety.
Absolutely.
And the interesting thing is that actually leads me to my conclusion, because I have this focus in terms of the conversations and the work with men that started when I was talking to men about women and the unique value that they bring to the workplace, and recognizing the difference in the experiences, with the ultimate objective of gender harmony, a world in which, should I say, as men, women, and others, we just work seamlessly together. And I don't know whether you've got any final conclusions in terms of how men and women can work more effectively together.
The elephant in the room that I think is getting more and more out of the room with men and women is about power and vulnerability. And what I love that is going on in the world now is women are being heard about their health, about hormones, whether it's perimenopause or the menstrual cycle or before or after childbirth or whatever, which are huge mysteries for men, and about the fears and the experience of it. And men have the andropause. Men feel like we need to have hair and be virile until our dying day. And there are so many. Western society is obsessed with youth, which is ridiculous. One of the most important roles that women play for men, I believe, is when a woman gets into the so-called crone stage, post-menopausal. It's time for the next phase of the woman to bring the depth and the clarity of being able to see through things and people and see their shadows and see the games and see what's going on, and to lovingly name it or ask the right questions so people are kept in check. This crone energy is something that is so vitally important. The older, wiser woman. In the old days, it was feared, burnt at the stake. But this is such powerful energy. As men grow older, men become more feminine, more loving, grandparents who can listen and nurture. Women often become more masculine, grow in wisdom, in sharpness, and have the life experience to see who's good, who's bad, what to trust, which things to ask, what's been repeating that needs to be named, to hold men accountable. You know, boys like to be accountable with boys as they do. And by boys, I mean over-enthusiastic men. We're talking about doing it as grown-ups. So to be able to listen and learn from the older women, to provide and protect and nurture the younger women, and to be able to take part and to know our differences rather than pretending we're the same. We're not the same. Hormonally and with our privileges, we are not the same. Men are so great at fearing other men or believing that everyone's their mate and their best friends, and having lots of suppliers and mate, where women hold the clarity and the boundaries of who is really allowed into the home and into the life and into the inner circle of any community. And this is very, very important. So boundaries is a big one. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, and we need to work together and respect what each other has, rather than believing we're the same and making a joke of other people's experiences. It's not just men who would scoff at female hormones. It was also women. And I think it's horrendous the way it's been called the curse and the way that it's laughed at. These things need to be taken seriously so we can all be with each other as we go through the good, bad, and ugly and the lessons and the joys of life.
Thank you very much for a very insightful conversation. For people that may want to get in touch with you for your men's group, one-to-one support, or anything else, how do they go about doing so?
For the men's groups, it's mensgroups.co.uk, and we're on every day. It's free for the first month, and then it's £20 a month for unlimited groups. For private work with me or the trainings to hold groups, etc., it's the manwhisperer.co.uk. Right now, I will apologize for my public face because I haven't given it much thought, and I really should update everything. But I feel lucky enough to be engaged with the work rather than tinkering with my my medias. But yeah, mensgroups.co.uk, the manwhisperer.co.uk, and I guess my column. I've got the Agony Uncle column on the iPaper that's out every Friday. Men write in with their issues, and I cover so much in the column as well.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed the conversation with you.
So have I. It's been brilliant. I can't believe some of the places we've gone.
I have the habit of taking people to places even if they're not expecting it.
Not off. It's like, oh my God, what am I doing talking about this? And it's so important, some of it. I'd never talked about some of that before. Really important stuff. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for joining me for today's conversation. I hope you found it insightful. Get in touch and let me know what you think, or if I or any of my guests can be of support to you. Until next time, this is Susan Popoola, working towards the creation of a Mosaic World. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Leading in the Mosaic World podcast. Do visit our website at www.mosaicworld.live to find out more about what we do and how we can be of support to you. Alternatively, connect with me, Susan Popoola, spelt Popoola, on LinkedIn, and let me know what you think of the podcast. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, give it a first-class rating, and tell everyone you know all about it. Thank you.